Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Last Son. This is the TEW9 Dev Journal, and today is day 15, the last day of this week as we get closer and closer to beta day. Today, we're going to talk about a bunch of things, pre-shows and post-shows, and custom divisions, furthering like, storylines, all kinds of stuff. So, let's kick it off with the pre-show build-up. And Adam leaves us a note that the first two entries they're hard to visualize, and he's done his best to try to describe them. It's something that he says that once you experience it directly, you'll understand how it works, and everything becomes even clearer than what it is before. But pre-show phase, when you enter the evening phase to book a show, what you encounter now has been totally redone in order to make it just a little bit more structured and remove some of the annoying loopholes and immersion breaking logic issues that were previously present. So now there's 7 steps taken in sequence with a clear purpose to each of them. So this is what they are. The first step is going to be give the night off. In this step, the user can choose to give, or more accurately, have already have given. Let's assume that this is happening well in advance of the show. Any number of people on their roster the night off. This gives them advance warning they are not needed, which is always a neutral action, and it does not impact their morale negatively, and so they don't travel to the venue. People given the night off are obviously unavailable to book for the show, but so they don't have any impact on locker room, so they can't influence the atmosphere, become involved in incidents, etc. They also won't complain about being left off the show because you told them in advance they're not needed. They're free to work for any other show taking place that night, whether it's for a company they also work for or if it's an independent gig. Instead, this can be useful if you want to keep bad influences out, or if you have more wrestlers that you can use and want people to be able to gain experience elsewhere. Or you just don't have plans for someone and I want to avoid them getting upset about not being used. Anyone you don't give the night off is considered to have traveled to the show and is backstage. So this will just remove the illogical situation in previous games where people you didn't use on the show could go and work somewhere else, even though they're already in your backstage area and impacting your backstage area. You can right click to skip this step entirely, and if you never see yourself using it, you can also set it to be auto skipped in the options menu. Venue selection is the next step. It's the same as we're used to in previous games. The difference is once you've chosen the venue, you cannot go back and change your mind later. While this is true, that this means that we have less flexibility than in previous games. The reason for this change is that it both removes the illogical nature of somehow moving the entire show to a totally different region or time zone on a whim, even when incidents have happened. It also means that it opens up some new possibilities because it means the game knows and takes into account and knows exactly where you're at, which he'll talk about more in a moment. So far, this is seeming pretty cool. I know that people may not like the fact that we have less flexibility about this, but it makes sense. You can't just sit there and go, okay, well, we're going to, for example, Tokyo, and then suddenly, oh, nope, what I meant was we're going to California and move it at the last second. So the next part's finalized broadcasters, same as we're used to from previous games. It's done at this stage of the game so they can take into account like the broadcasting status for incidents and bookings. So if this is like a big pay-per-view, then that will be taken into account for people's behavior, whereas a non-televised event would be treated differently. Pretty cool. Pre-show incidents. This is a new section that takes advantage of the fact that the game knows where you're at in the game world and what level of show it is. And it doesn't have to worry about that situation changing out of nowhere. So pre-show incidents involve local environment. So this can be dealing with like previously announced the weather conditions they talked about. Workers who are flying in have transport issues and not being able to make the show. problems with the venue itself, like security alerts, equipment going into the wrong place, etc. So the idea behind this section is to make things more realistic and to throw some like spanners in the work occasionally to make you have to change up your booking. The next step is the booking team meeting. They were covered in detail, like I think day 1 or day 2. So we could always go back and read that or go back to that video and listen to what the booking meeting is actually going to be. So the next step is locker room incidents. These are similar to the incidents that you're used to from previous games, but they've been upgraded. Because the game now knows where you're at, this opens the ability to generate incidents involving workers from the local region. For example, you might get a local worker turning up to request to be able to hang out backstage with their friends. That could be in breach of your locker room rules, so you have to make a decision on whether to make an exception or not. Or you could have a worker turn up backstage and ask if you might give them an opportunity to be on the show. Plus, there's also new incidents to add to those you're familiar with. Additionally, because now these happen in sequence, it means the knock-on effects can occur, so your handling of this one incident may affect something that comes later. Overall, Adam thinks the trade-off of no longer being able to change your venue once you've made up your mind, which, to be fair, was pretty unrealistic anyways, is well worth having a much richer variety of things that can happen in the pre-show and locker room incidents sections. Next thing you can do is address the locker room. It's what you're familiar with in previous games. Most of these steps allow single-click responses. For example, you can right-click venue selection to accept the AI's recommendation, right-clicking the booking team meeting to have it handled automatically, and are auto-skipped if unneeded or inappropriate for the situation. So it's apparently going to be very user-friendly. Once you've completed all 7 steps, then you can move into the booking section that we're familiar with. So overall, this new design hopefully adds for more content and adds realism while making it a lot more user-friendly to get through. I'm pretty excited. Going through all these different steps, potentially getting incidents with workers coming in to be with friends that could make things, chaotic and crazy in the back, and that's against your rules, or people coming in and asking to be put on the show. Maybe then you find somebody who's a really good worker for you. I think that's pretty cool. So we have a post-show roundup for consistency. The section now also follows the same concept as the pre-show. So they're just a series of stages. They're going to be you address the locker room, do the post-show speech, like in previous games. Then we have an injury review. This will give an overview of any injuries that were suffered during the show. A financial report. This gives a financial breakdown of how that show did. Pretty cool. Popularity recap gives a breakdown of the company's popularity, how's it shifted, if any movement has happened from that show. And then you have the media scrum that we covered in a previous journal. So as with the pre-show system, there's just single clicks, automatic steps to make this section as user-friendly as possible. The additions of the injury review and the financial report were requested a few times in the suggestions forums, as a quality of life changes. Custom divisions. So by popular request, each company can now have custom division names rather than having to select from a pre-written selection. They function in the same way as the pre-written ones. So once you've assigned someone to a division, you can search for it to make booking or roster management easier. Now we're going to have figurehead heirs. So the figurehead section has been upgraded with the addition of figurehead heirs. This is an optional position that can be given to someone who is, I guess you're grooming them to become the next figurehead at some point. So this allows for a degree of succession planning and long-term strategy. The advantage of having an heir is that they can serve their establishment period while in the heir position, meaning that they can hit the ground running when they get promoted to being the figurehead. and they're immediately effective. The downside is that figureheads and their heirs have an inherent tension that can lead to arguments and possibly relationship issues because they're worried. The figurehead's worried that you're getting ready to replace them with their heir. So I'm assuming that's going to be a constant source of tension that could lead to problems, but it's realistic. I mean, if you have your replacement already going, they're just waiting there. It could probably, get to be a little bit stressful and could lead to problems. I like that idea. So the next thing we're going to talk about is block taping pay discounts. So workers who are being paid per show and they work multiple shows in a single evening will now work for discounted pay. They accept less money in exchange for a lot of work at once. So they'll get paid for full pay on the first show, 25% less for the second, 50% less for the third, 75 less for any subsequent show. This makes block taping more viable as effective cost-saving measures for companies, and therefore it makes it easier for smaller companies to thrive if they are having money issues. As in, unlike before, where you just would pay a full, pay per show for every episode you taped. You taped 4, you paid 4 times. So it really wasn't a cost saving other than, I guess, possibly not having to pay for travel, covering that travel multiple times during a month. So it's a cool feature. Finance is getting reworked. A lot of the financial modeling in the game has been redone in order to better balance things. To do this, they've taken several of the most popular databases and run long-term simulations on them to establish a system that broadly works for everyone. Obviously, it's impossible to create a system that works for every scenario. There's simply just too many of the different types of possible combinations that are company types, sizes, rosters for that to even, happen. But Adam is pretty pleased with the results they've been getting. In particular, a lot has been altered to tone down how much profit the major companies are making. In conjunction with previous announced abilities to alter the figures used and some of these calculations via eras, this could provide a better basis than any other previous game in the series for financing and keeping you and your competition doesn't go crazy, keeps you in a better, more realistic financial world. So that's pretty cool. Furthering storylines is what we're going to talk about next. When checking whether enough storylines have been furthered at the end of each show, the game also takes it into account whether any of these actual storylines had dramatic stakes. It does this by looking to see whether one or more people had their success level changed. This stops the loophole slash exploit where you could just put a storyline in a holding pattern where nothing ever actually happened, which is good. I mean, anything that makes the game more realistic, I think, is good. So getting rid of loopholes and exploits, that's pretty cool. One-sided storylines. Very one-sided storylines where one person or side is completely and utterly dominant now leak heat, over time to simulate how boring they would be for fans. That's cool. I mean, I think that would be something in the real life that would happen. We, as wrestling fans, we all get tired of, you know, this worker always either winning or being successful and just dominant and everything. We like to see the dramatic tension and growth of characters as they we'd love to see the hero fail and overcome those obstacles and grow as a character. It's pretty cool. So new dispositions, as well as the existing babyface slash heel and Technico slash Rudo options for dispositions. Companies can now just pick from hero slash villain and blue eye slash heel. The former may be useful for those writing in fantasy databases, while the latter is there for real-world situations like old-style British companies. These were requested by a couple database makers. Subscription broadcaster profits. By request, the profit margins for subscription-based broadcasters have now been slashed to stop them from being so powerful. This ties into the aforementioned tightening up of the financial model. They're going to say, Adam wants you to note that I know some people wanted to have them change so that they lose money, be closer to reality. He decided against this as he thinks it would not work from a gameplay perspective. I don't think anyone would use them if they always lost you money when you could just use a different broadcaster instead. So that change would effectively just make the feature useless. I agree. They can't always lose money. I know in reality, they're not as powerful as what they are in the game, which they're working on. I see that. So it's just gonna have to be something we wait and see how it works in um, action. How does it work? As long as it's not like the point where you're a small company, you're not making much money, and you get to actually be on one of these subscription-based broadcasters, and then suddenly you're just raking in the money, and everything's so much easier now. That's overpowered, and that's what it was kind of like before. So slashing that money, I think, is a good choice. And then it says a new note on an alteration. A few days ago, he went through the new Ultra/Super spillover feature. He had a feedback from a couple of people who wanted to see it altered to widen its scope, so they made the change for them. So it works exactly the same way as before, except it has additional tiers at the 60, 65, and 70 popularity levels. So on Ultra Spillover, these are given an extra 5%. On Super Spillover, they give an extra 2. So this means that even mid-level foreign stars will receive some degree of additional popularity. Anyone below 60, though, is still getting the normal 20% spillover. That won't change. But it's cool that they've already listened to people and had feedback from people, and they've already made a change, and we're not even in the beta yet. Nobody's seen the game unless they're maybe potentially a beta tester or something, or an alpha tester. But they're listening to people from the forum, and they're changing features as they go. So I'm excited, guys. I can't wait to the 27th, 8 days away. Next Saturday, basically, we get our hands on this game. So next week, I'm hoping, and I'm thinking that there'll be 5 more days of feature releases, and then on that Friday we'll look at the last feature release, because that Saturday will be beta day. So I'm hoping beta goes smooth. I get some videos out for you guys to watch, so you can see how the game is, what things are. Try to get some of these screens shown to people to see how they're doing, things like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed today and this week's block of dev journals. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And I'm hoping that these you're finding value in these, and that you're getting excited and you're getting hyped for this game, as I know I am. So I'm Last Son, guys. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys in our next video.